If there's one thing that I hope you're able to get out of this entire series, it's this. Never, and I mean never, underestimate or devalue the impact and artistic mastery of the movie Citizen Kane. Made in 1941 by then radio broadcaster Orson Welles, Citizen Kane tells a story of a prolific political figure as his story is being found out by a reporter after his death. Right? It's about as confusing as that summary was. It's out of sequential order and has incredible montages that follow complex ideas like a ruining marriage is shown through a couple of shots. It has running metaphors like the name or the word rosebud. Dramatic lighting that just oozes in through the windows. Charismatic yet flawed lead with Orson Welles' Kane, and simply incredible shots done by a new camera that could focus on every single part of the frame, every single part of the image. And all of this was done by a man who had never made a movie before. It's true. He simply studied pioneers, specifically John Ford, but he had never made a movie before. I mean, Orson had layered shots that would tell different stories in the same frame, within the same movie that had just, it was crazy. And while toppling ideas like the corruption of man through the pursuit of power, it is a fantastic movie all around. And it changed the entire thought process of the movie industry. Although not immediately, it didn't even win the Oscar for Best Film, but that seems to be a sad trend with the Oscars, never going with the right choice. Uh, but this was made in 1941 and plunged us into way more artistic types of movies. Because you can see right off the bat, within the 40s itself comes Casablanca, which some would put as second to one of the best movies of all time, The Maltese Falcon, Great Noir, Fantasia, the Mickey Mouse silent orchestral driven movie, Rope, a very suspenseful Hitchcock movie, Third Man, which also has Orson Welles, but he doesn't write direct, and The Great Dictator, which is Charlie Chaplin's talking movie, and Bicycle Thief, which is an Italian movie about poverty, and so much more. The post World War II landscape changed many countries. Like I said before, Italy entered into this realism with their movies, and they would film their entire stories on the public streets of Rome that were then run down and basically just dirt. France reached this surrealism with melting mirrors and shot that the Matrix sort of not ripped off but paid homage to. And America, economy boost, and we catapult into the golden age of Hollywood. And of course comes the 50s next. Big budget movies were being made now, such as Ben-Hur, The Ten Commandments, and On the Bridge of the River Kwai. These big productions that have horse racing, of ocean being split in half, and an entire bridge being exploded. It kept Hollywood running. But this decade is so diverse. It has all these different types of movies. It's really when the genres started to widen up and you got more diverse types of movies. I don't even know how to label, say, 12 Angry Men. And A Rebel Without a Cause was the first, teen angst movie. But suspense was being cultivated by the master Hitchcock with two of his greatest movies, Rear Window and Vertigo, not to mention North by Northwest in the same decade. Horror was being utilized very well with movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, crime noirs with Stanley Kubrick's The Killing, and of course, like classic westerns with The Searchers and Shane. It's one of the most important filmmakers ever. A Swedish man named by Igmar Bergman comes out with two movies. One is called The Seventh Seal, and the other is Wild Strawberries, both in 1957, and both of which are incredible. He really just made these incredible. I don't even know how to explain it, but it would catapult him into fame, into the limelight of Swedish films, and he would then come out with a bunch of other movies in the 60s. And let me tell you, the 60s are an incredible decade. Bergman keeps going with sensational movies like Persona and Silence. Hitchcock's still going with Psycho, one of his most revered movies ever. Um, but now the introduction of who Stanley Kubrick really is coming into play, and he comes out in the 60s with Spartacus, then Lolita, then Paths of Glory, and then 2001: A Space Odyssey, which are four just indescribably good movies. I mean, but then also you have movies like The Graduate, Rosemary's Baby, and so on. I mean, guys, I could list off an ungodly amount of incredible movies that came out of the 60s. It's the beginning of the modern cinematic world. The counterculture created in the late 60s and early 70s focused so much on art and being able to express yourself that you can see historically how this came about. And I don't want to compare anything, but the 70s just might be a superior year. After all the movies listed off in the 60s, the 70s still might be better. I mean, first off, you have Francis Ford Coppola coming into the scene with uh, the two Godfathers, part 1 and 2, which best movies ever. Apocalypse Now, which is one of my favorite movies ever. I mean, it's incredible. Then George Lucas starts off his career with American Graffiti, and later in the year comes out with Star Wars. I mean, look, I'm gonna spit fire, okay? Blazing Saddles, hysterical. Grease, Soylent Green, Deliverance, Animal House, Halloween, Taxi Driver, Alien, Deer Hunter. I mean, come on. Clockwork Orange, Chinatown, Dog Day Afternoon, Jaws, and The Exorcist. And I'm still only scratching the surface. Well, with the creation of the counterculture in the 60s and 70s, one focused on expression and art, it just really catapulted the cinematic world into a way more respectable art form. And I'm going to stop this episode here, but it just keeps on going.